Welcome back to Hidden Hype, where the shadows hold the most electrifying stories.
October 11th, 1973. The air along the Pascagoula River was heavy and still, the kind of stillness you only notice when everything around you suddenly feels too quiet. Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker had come to the river that evening for a simple reason: to fish. Nothing unusual, nothing mysterious, just two co-workers trying to unwind after a long day at the shipyard. The sun had already set. Darkness slowly settled across the Mississippi landscape. The river reflected the faint glow of distant industrial lights. Crickets hummed in the distance. Water moved gently along the shoreline. Everything felt normal, until the sound began. Charles Hickson was 42 years old, a quiet man, reliable, hard-working, someone who believed in practical things. Calvin Parker was only 19, younger, more reserved, still figuring out his place in the world. The two worked together at a nearby shipyard. That evening, like many evenings before, they decided to spend time fishing along the Pascagoula River. It was something simple, familiar, safe. The riverbank was a place where the noise of work faded away, where time slowed down, where nothing unexpected ever happened. Or at least, that's what they believed. As they stood near the water's edge, both men suddenly heard something unusual. At first, it was faint, almost easy to ignore. A strange, buzzing sound. Low, mechanical, unfamiliar. Charles later described the sound as something unlike anything he had ever heard before. Not an airplane, not an insect, not a boat engine. Something different, something unnatural. The sound grew louder. Both men looked up, and that's when they saw it. Suspended above the ground was a glowing object, oval-shaped, emitting a soft blue light, hovering silently just beyond the tree line. The object appeared solid, structured, controlled. The blue glow reflected across the surface of the river. The light shimmered across the ripples in the water. Calvin later said the moment he saw the object, he felt something he could not explain. Fear. Immediate. Overwhelming. Not curiosity. Not confusion. Fear. Charles felt it too. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. The men described feeling unable to move, as if their bodies had suddenly stopped responding. Their muscles felt heavy. Their thoughts felt slowed. The buzzing sound continued. Then, something opened on the craft. A doorway, a dark opening illuminated by blue light, and from that opening, something emerged. 3 figures moved out from the craft. They did not walk the way humans walk. They appeared to glide, floating slightly above the ground. The men later described the beings as gray in color, wrinkled skin, long arms, claw-like hands, no visible neck. Their heads appeared fixed directly to their bodies. Their movements were controlled, purposeful, precise. They did not appear to be rushing. They did not appear aggressive. But something about their presence felt overwhelming, unnatural, terrifying. Charles later said he tried to shout, tried to run, tried to move, but his body would not respond. Calvin described feeling completely helpless, unable to control his own movements. The beings approached slowly, one on each side, one in front. They did not speak. They did not gesture. They simply moved closer and closer, until the men felt themselves being lifted. The men claimed they were taken inside the object. Inside, the air felt different, still, controlled. The room was illuminated with a soft white glow, no visible light source, no visible shadows. The walls appeared smooth, metallic, seamless. Charles described a mechanical device, something shaped like a large eye, observing, scanning, studying. The device moved with precision, as if examining them. Both men later struggled to describe how long they were inside the object. Time did not feel normal. There were no clocks, no windows, no visible way to measure how long the experience lasted. Charles Hickson would later say it felt like only minutes had passed. Calvin Parker said it felt longer, much longer. The silence inside the craft was overwhelming. No voices, no footsteps, no mechanical sounds that resembled anything familiar. Only the quiet hum of something operating beyond their understanding. The mechanical device moved with precision, slowly scanning across their bodies, as if collecting information, as if studying them. Neither man reported feeling pain, but both described feeling completely powerless, unable to control their movements, unable to stop what was happening. Charles later said the beings did not appear hostile, but they did not appear compassionate either. They behaved with purpose, with efficiency, as if performing a routine task. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the examination ended. The men reported feeling themselves being guided back toward the entrance of the craft. The interior light remained soft, consistent, emotionless. The beings did not communicate. They did not acknowledge the men in any way that could be understood. Moments later, the men found themselves outside once again. The experience lasted only minutes, but to Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, it felt far longer. The blue light suddenly faded. The strange figures moved back toward the craft, without urgency, without hesitation, as if the entire encounter had followed a precise sequence. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the object lifted, rising silently above the trees. The glow became smaller, fainter, until the light disappeared completely into the night sky. The sound was gone. The river returned to silence. The men were left standing alone once again along the Pascagoula River. But nothing felt normal anymore. Calvin was trembling. Charles later said the young man was in shock, terrified, struggling to process what had just happened. Both men knew one thing for certain: they needed to tell someone. The two men drove directly to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, still shaken, still trying to make sense of what they had experienced. They told officers they believed they had encountered something not of this world. At first, investigators were unsure how seriously to take the report. UFO claims were not unheard of in the 1970s, but something about the men's behavior stood out. They did not appear excited. They did not appear amused. They appeared frightened, genuinely frightened. Calvin Parker reportedly broke down during questioning, struggling to speak clearly distressed by what he believed had happened. Investigators began to wonder whether the men truly believed their story. Investigators decided to observe the men more closely. Without informing them, officers left a small recording device running when they stepped out of the room. The recorder captured the private conversation between Hickson and Parker. What investigators heard surprised them. The men spoke in low voices. Their words were hesitant, their breathing heavy. They did not laugh. They did not suggest inventing a story. Instead, they spoke about fear, about confusion, about not understanding what they had seen. At one point, Calvin reportedly said he was terrified the beings might return. Investigators later stated the recording did not sound like two individuals attempting to fabricate a hoax. It sounded like two men trying to comprehend something deeply disturbing. The story quickly spread beyond Mississippi. Media outlets across the country began reporting on the encounter. Television crews interviewed the two witnesses. Researchers took interest in the case. Both men agreed to take polygraph examinations. The results indicated they believed what they were saying. Their testimony remained consistent. Years passed, and neither man significantly changed their account of the events. Charles Hickson continued to speak publicly about the encounter. Calvin Parker, more reserved, eventually also shared his experience in later years. Despite skepticism from some, others believed the consistency of their testimony made the case difficult to dismiss entirely. Decades later, the Pascagoula encounter remains one of the most debated UFO cases in American history. Some believe the men misidentified a natural or man-made object. Others believe psychological factors could explain the experience, and some believe the encounter represents something humanity does not yet fully understand. The Pascagoula River still flows quietly through Mississippi. The same riverbank, the same darkness, the same silence. Nothing outwardly appears different. Yet for those who know the story, that location carries a question that has never been fully answered. What did Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker encounter that night? And if something unexplained did occur, could it happen again? Follow Hidden Hype, where the shadows hold the most electrifying stories.